I'm taking the plunge. No, not into a pool. I'm going to replace the movement in my Seiko Samurai, and I'll walk you through the steps on this episode of Adventures with Time. Welcome to Adventures with Time. On this channel, I chronicle my experiences in watch collecting. And on this episode, I take another step in deepening my knowledge into watches. Or should I say, the watch hobby. A few years ago, I purchased the Seiko Samurai, reference number SRPB55. I've been using this watch as my beater and taking it on vacations to the shore. This watch uses the Seiko 4R35 movement, which, as best as I can tell, is a perfectly fine movement for a watch in the affordable price range. But last year, the watch started to have consistency problems. I've documented my analysis of this problem and my failed attempts to have the watch repaired by Seiko. I'll leave a link to that playlist up here in the corner if you're not familiar with this story. After thinking about what I should do for some time, I decided that I will try to repair the watch myself. After all, this is one step I can take to improving my knowledge of watches and how they work. Now, I'm not going to try to take the movement apart and figure out which component needs to be repaired or replaced. Instead, I'm just going to simply replace the entire movement. To prepare for this process, I've watched several videos on YouTube on how to work on watches, mostly Seiko movements since that's what I'm trying to fix. They range from simply replacing a crown stem to replacing movements to actually modding watches. And at this point, I think I've learned about as much as I can before actually trying it myself. Now, I've written down all the steps I will need to perform, not just for the benefit of this video, but so that I have something to follow as I'm going along. These steps are: remove the strap, remove the case back, remove the crown, remove the movement from the case, remove the hands from the dial, remove the dial, switch the movement retaining rings if necessary. I still haven't figured out if I need to do that. Install the dial onto the new movement. Install the hands onto the new movement. Install the crown and stem and check that the hands move and the date changes appropriately. Put the movement into the case. Replace the crown and stem. Replace the case back and attach the strap. Simple, right? I will be filming this process as I actually perform the steps for the first time. So this should be interesting. So you can imagine on some of the more difficult steps, my level of anxiety may go up. So I thought it'd be fun if I added this little anxiety meter so you can tell what steps I think are easy and what steps are giving me some agita. Let's get started. Now, before I actually do any work, I need to make sure I have all the appropriate tools I'll need. Obviously, I need the watch, my Seiko Samurai. Now, I already have a cheap toolkit that I got several months ago. It includes, a heavy-duty case back opener, much-needed tweezers, some wedging tools, spring bar tool, case holder, movement holder, several things. And I also had a more extensive set of screwdrivers, pushers, pokers, what have you. But there were a few more items I felt I needed to get. So one of them is this cute little multi-compartment dust cover to put parts in after I've removed them from the case or the movement. I also had less heavy-duty case back opener and watch case holder, so I'll be prepared for those. I got this little pad to put the movement on when I'm working on it, in addition to this rather large mat. I got a fairly inexpensive Presto tool to remove the hands, as well as some of these dial protectors when I'm doing that. And it came with this hand press tool. Hopefully that will be sufficient for what I need. There were much more expensive varieties of this, but I figured I'm not going to be doing a lot yet, so let me try these out. I also got this blower to remove dust, as well as a pack or a wad of this Radico, which is somewhat like putty to not only remove dust that you can't get with the blower, but it also helps in picking up and placing small pieces. So I've got that. And of course, I needed a replacement movement. Now, I could have gone with the 4R35 exact match, but that's about double the price of Seiko's unbranded NH35, which I'm 99% sure is a like-for-like replacement with the 4R35. So that concludes everything I need other than confidence and time to do this work. And of course, I'm being very conservative here. Before I actually put this movement in, I'm going to see if I can test it on my time grapher, just to make sure that I'm not replacing my existing movement with an equally bad movement. So let's try that out. Okay, first thing to do is set up the time grapher. $53 degrees. Oops. And then let's open up the movement here. Looks like it comes with a stem and the movement. Now, one thing I'm not sure of is if I can actually wind this movement. Let's see if this is actually winding the movement. Looks like it is working. So I'm going to gently put it here on the time grapher. Let's see how it does. Well, that looks very good compared to my existing movement. No weird beats. Plus 7 seconds a day. I can live with that. 0.4 milliseconds of beat error is not too bad. Let's just check it in another position just to see what it does. Not bad. I'm satisfied that this is a good movement for me to put into my Seiko Samurai. So let's do that. So I'm working here with a 2-camera system, one from below here and one from above. Hopefully I'll be able to work without disturbing the cameras. So step 1 is to remove the straps, which we do fairly easily since we have drilled lugs, and we can put those aside for now. Now we want to get the case back off. Don't really see any gasket on here. interesting that this movement, and I'll use a toothpick to point this out, says 4R37. No other markings on this movement that I can see. Well, we may have hit our first glitch here. This is supposed to have a 4R35 movement in it, and I don't know what the difference is between a 37 and 35. So let me go onto the internet and take a look here. And I found this article on Caliber Corner, which compares the unbranded versions of the Seiko movements. And on the bottom part, the specs, we can see that they're all the same size. The 35 and the 37 are the same size and the same in all the specs. But the difference seems to be that the 35 does not have a 24-hour dial and the 37 does. I don't know what that is referenced to. Does that mean it's a GMT movement? Maybe. So I assume since everything else is the same that I can move ahead with my work. So the next step is to remove the crown, which requires finding the release button and pressing it. So what I think I've discovered is that there is this plate here, this thing, which is covering that hole. I don't know if I can push down here. Ah, there we go. And it came out. Now the next step is to remove the movement. So let's see if the movement will come out on its own. Not really. Okay, so we're gonna get a little screwdriver here and see if we can't pry it up. There we go. I've loosened it. Turn it over. And voila. Now, step 5. This is the one that scares me a bit. It is to remove the hands. First, let's get our dial protector. And I don't want to detach any of those indices. That looks pretty good. Hand remover. Wow. That went fairly easily. So now the next step is to remove the dial. And it is held in, theoretically, by friction with a couple of stems, I would say. And what we're looking for is some places here where we can stick a screwdriver. There you go. See that moved up slightly? And slightly see if we can loosen that. Should be one more spot right there. And try to pull straight up. Now it's stuck on one spot here. There. Okay. Let's compare these two movements. First thing I want to do is check the diameter of these, and I'm going to use my micrometer, zero it out. So that looks to be 29 millimeters. This one is also 29 millimeters. So I'm fairly happy that those are good. Now I need to remove the stem and crown from this movement. Putting this into a movement holder. And let's look for that point where we need to press, and it's right there. Gently press, and out comes that stem. Having measured these, I think they are equivalent, and I don't need to switch these plastic retaining rings. I'm going to take my old movement with the crown and stem that came with the new movement and just find out where that goes. That goes right in that hole, and I'll just push it right in. There we go. So now I'm going to put this movement away because I don't need it anymore. I'll probably play with that later, see if I can figure out what went wrong with it. Now I need to install the dial on the new movement. And again, that just means aligning the little feet on the dial with the holes in the movement holder. Give this a little blow to get rid of any sort of dust on there. And position it on here. The stem came right out of here, this point, which means that is where the date window goes. So you can see that there are two alignment pins on the back of the dial, and those have to go there and there. And so we just want to place that right on there and align the dial and push it down. And it looks like it's down on all sides. So now, one of the scariest parts for me is to put the hands back on. First, I have to reinstall the stem. Do it without screwing anything up. That seems to be okay. I'm going to put it in this holder. First, I'm going to set the date. So pull it out one click and get the date on a full position. And then I want to pull it out all the way and just keep winding it until the date changes. That'll tell me that the hour hands and the minute hands are exactly on 12. And I really don't know where that is, so I'm just going to keep going slowly until the date changes. And going and going. There it starts to go, and I'm going to slowly turn it until it just clicks. There we go. So now I know that both the hour and minute hand should be at the 12 o'clock position. And now I need to put the hands back on. And I'm a little paranoid about bending the hands. Now I have to get the hand setting tool in position, and I want the larger tip, and it just pressure fits in there. Now, to pad or cushion the movement while it's on there, I just cut a piece of vinyl covered book, position it like that. Now I'm removing the overhead camera and switching my close-up camera around. First of all, the overhead isn't going to show anything, and the close-up, if I move it around, I can get my hands in there better. Hopefully I won't knock it and shake the camera too much, but we'll see. Now with the hour hand, I just want to get it on that pinion. Have it sit there. There. Now I can try to adjust it so it's right on the 12. Actually, if I turn it this way, we can see it better. And I'm going to lower this onto it, but I'm not going to press it until I get the hour hand right in position. Too much. Now, I'm a stickler for exactness, so I am using a loop, which you can't see, to ensure that this hand is exactly on 12. And I'm just going to press it on. I think you can see that it's on there. And now we're going to get the minute hand, and we'll put that on the pinion, and then try to adjust it. Okay. Once again, let me turn it so that the 12 is right up, and I'm sorry for keep on hitting the camera and shaking it. Slightly, just hold that in place. Ooh, that looks good. And you heard a little snap. So now I'm going to put on a macro lens before I get to the second hand to make sure that everything looks in place. Well, that looked fairly good. Let me try to move the hands and see how they work. Before I go any further with the second hand, I want to make sure the movement moves without any problem. And I don't sense any problem. Let's see how well I got the hour lined up for the date change. Get it all the way around. Bam, that's pretty good. And when this lines up on the hour, we get the nice spaceship or the rocket ship. So I'm happy with this. Let's move on to the last part, which is the seconds hand. Now, it doesn't matter what the second hand is aligned up to. I don't know if you can see on this, but the second hand has a little shaft on the bottom of it. I need to pick it up. Okay, I think I got it. Let's position this. Let me see if I can. Oops, lost it. This is the toughest part. Very tough. This is frustrating. Oh. Now. Bent it. As you can see, I've bent my second hand. Well, I played around with this a bit, tried to see if I could straighten that second hand, but it's not going to work. So I went off and ordered a new second hand. It should be in a couple weeks, and I'll pick up with another video at that point. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2.